So when it came to like by 1980, was MANIAC your first kind of like pretty much your first kind of like straight horror
mainstream?
Mainstream film, right?
Oh yeah.
And now, tell us how that came about, because I mean, you obviously got to know Spinell really well. Joe Spinell was just one of the greatest character actors ever.
He was in The Godfather.
He was in everything, and
a lot of New York
great
stuff.
He was Joe Spinell, and other actors and people who worked with him will tell you this, and it's not because he's now no longer with us, and we think back, he was a great actor.
Absolutely.
He was truly, if you look at the breadth of his work, the diversity of the characters he played, besides playing, of course, mobsters to the T,
right.
But he played all other kinds of characters, and he did it so well. If you look at, for instance, the movie Stay Hungry, or 92 in the Shade, and movies like this, he just was across the board one of the most versatile, great character actors.
Yeah. Magnetic, like you really can't take your eyes off.
And so natural too.
Yes.
Like, he just slid right into whatever role.
He could do anything, and he was loved by the crew.
Yeah.
In New York, they loved him. They Scorsese, anybody everybody loved Joe, and they all respected him.
I heard a story. I don't know if it was one of the DVDs, but it was that Coppola loved him so much that Spinell was on the set like almost the entire time for The Godfather.
Yes.
Even when he was not acting.
Yeah.
So he got paid like really well because Coppola's
well,
on the set.
No.
But, okay, now I know you guys can't imagine this, but there was a time before computers.
I can remember. Come on.
Anyway, going back to the Stone Age, back in the time of The Godfather, they were doing accounting the old-fashioned way, pencils and erasers and
Sure.
pieces of paper. And when Joe was hired for The Godfather, he was only supposed to work a few days. And so as an actor, he was put on what's called a day rate.
Yeah.
Right.
A day rate contract. If you were expected to work, say, for more than a couple of days, let's say for a week or two, you'd be put on a weekly contract.
Yeah.
And if you're like the other main actors in The Godfather working the run of the show, you're put on what's called a Schedule F, which is a flat fee to be there for the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened with Joe is he was signed as a day player, as a day player, and what happened was Coppola, as you said, kept him around because Joe really he was great with the actors.
Yeah.
He knew the turf.
Mm-hmm.
Coppola loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was kept around even when he wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, he's racking up day rates,
Yes.
which are much higher, by the way,
Right, than a weekly and a monthly.
proportionally than weekly and monthly on a proportionate basis. I think eventually they caught it. But at that point, he had maybe made as much as, say, some of these people like Pacino made.
That's great.
And his residuals were humongous.
Yeah.
Wow. Joe had a problem with the IRS. Well, Joe had a thing where when he would go on a job, he'd write down on his, what do you call it, the W-9, he'd write down he had 99 dependents. And it finally caught up to him.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he thought he was getting free money.
Yeah.
Never worked. So at the point when, flashing forward many years, he would get his residual checks, and one of his residual checks on Godfather was like $16,000, and it was like unbelievable.
Especially back then too. I mean,
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I was having I had to take him to my corner bank where I had my business account in, and convinced them. I said, "Look, it's Paramount Pictures. It's a good check." And the guy at the bank at that point had kind of known Joe.
Yeah.
And they cashed it, and Joe would walk around with $16,000 cash on.
Man.
But he walking around money.
But he wrote, didn't he write Maniac?
Well, yeah, because I'm going to set the climate, the stage here this was like the slasher boom had just kind of broke in a way. I mean, Halloween, Friday the 13th.
True.
So,
actually, Friday the 13th came after we shot Maniac.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we hired Tom on the set of Friday the 13th.
Oh, wow.
So he went from the set in New Jersey of Friday the 13th to New York to do Maniac.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so tell us. I know that Spinell wrote Maniac, and because Maniac has become this kind of
Well,
pillar of infamous
Well,
slashes.
How did this whole thing come together?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, as you guys know, because you're into horror and obviously you guys live together. I don't want to.
No.
We are the
I'm not
monkeys
asking
of
too many.
We do not
podcasts.
know.
But you know that when horror people meet, there is an immediate bond
Yes.
Oh yeah.
about with horror people. Oh, you remember this movie? And I gotta, I want to see this, and I'm gonna go, and there was immediate bond. Joe Spinell was a horror fan, a true horror fan.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I
He
didn't know that.
loved horror movies.
Like all kinds, all eras.
I mean, and yeah, I mean, he just loved horror movies. He went to see them as a kid and loved them and loved the idea of wanting to star in his own horror film. So for many years before we made Maniac, we were trying to get from, I want to say from about 74, 75, we were trying to develop scripts and things. We had one which was about a father and son serial killer team, which could still be a good
That's
movie.
good.
It was actually,
I like
it was
that.
actually based on a true story of a father and son, New Jersey. I think I read it in New York Magazine or something.
Wow.
New Jersey. Yeah.
And we developed the script on it. And but we could never raise the money. You just could not do it.
Right.
So here's the pitch: father and son serial killers.
Okay.
Well, it probably wasn't so much the subject matter. Then I just did not have the credentials.
Right.
Even though I was working on, I had done an adult movie that was very successful. It still did not translate into even a guy like Corman giving the money to make a movie.
Yeah.
To give us the money to make a movie. They just didn't. There was no belief. And of course, it didn't help that I was in New York, and the independent business, for the most part, not entirely, but for the most part, was based in Los Angeles.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'd never been to Los Angeles in my life, so I totally alien country. So anyway, we just got to a point where we just kind of ran out of steam. I had made a second adult film, which I didn't want to do. I did it because just to keep working and to keep
pay the bills,
moving forward.
Yeah.
So what we just decided to do, out of just pure frustration, is we had this idea. It started with the idea of doing a serial killer movie where the character is a compilation of various serial killers from that period.
Okay.
That was the concept. And then I had the idea that we would do these kind of Dario Argento-esque set pieces. And then there would be a detective who was chasing him. Okay? With that, we went to a writer who had written a lot of police movies, and he said, no, I don't want to do it, but my wife, wants to be a screenwriter. So we gave her a shot at writing it. And, she wrote basically a very conventional cop chasing a serial killer type movie. Very, very conventional. And, but we were moving forward. Joe got the commitment of Jason Miller to play the cop. Wow. Jason Miller from The Exorcist.
Wow.
And it was going to be Jason Miller and Joe. Yeah. And I got Dario Argento, who I had worked on a couple of his New York sequences I worked on the New York sequences of Inferno and Tenebra.
Oh, wow, man.
So I had a relationship with Argento, and I got Argento's commitment to put in a little bit of money into the movie.
Wow, yeah.
And we got Goblin committed to do the score.
Oh, cool.
None of which, by the way, came to pass. And his wife, Daria Nicolodi, was going to play what became the Caroline Munro part.
Wow.
That's how originally it was.
Wow.
Those were the pieces of the original puzzle.
Yeah.
Well, of course, as things go, everything fell apart.
We know.
And in frustration, I decided I had just gotten a little bit of money in from the adult films. So I had about $30,000, which was all the money I had in the world. I had $30,000. My childhood friend, who I'd worked on some of these movies as a co-production manager, Andrew Garoni, He worked also on Inferno and Tenebrae and many other movies. He had 12,000, and Joe Spinell, who was shooting Cruising at that moment, got a check for 6,000 from Cruising. So with a grand total of $48,000 in the bank, we said we're going out and making our movie.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Now we knew that we didn't have enough money to finish the movie. But it's a funny thing when you're 24. The one beautiful thing when you're 24 is being fearless.
Sure.
Right.
You don't care. All you see is, I got to get this, and I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah.
And thinking back to it, it was pretty risky. It was a very risky thing to do, but it didn't seem that way at the time. It was sort of like everything we're in on everything. We're going to do this. We're going to make this happen. And my feeling was when the train left the station, other people would want to jump on board.
Right.
And I was right, because, and again, it was, in this business, serendipity rules. Joe had done a movie with Caroline called Star Crash.
Which I love.
Right.
I
Yeah.
love that movie.
Yeah. And one of the things about Joe is, just as a side note, is Joe is very protective of the actresses. I mean, he's as big a lecher as anybody, but when it came to the actresses, he was like really protective. And in Italy, they were shooting Star Crash. It was the winter, and the studios in Italy are made of marble. And they don't shoot sync sound. They shoot a scratch track,
Right.
and later it's all dubbed.
Right.
Anyway, Caroline was wearing next to nothing.
Yes.
And
We know.
I didn't notice.
Yeah. Come on.
And it was winter, and there wasn't always a dedicated wardrobe person that when the director yelled cut, they would run over and put a coat or something on her.
Right.
And Joe became like, I'm not coming to work anymore until there is somebody standing by to keep Caroline warm. I cannot work this way. She's got to be kept warm.
That's awesome.
And
Would he just wrap her in that big
Yeah, he has a
cloak
cape.
that he had?
I'm sure we did a couple of times. The thing is they bonded.
Right,
So
right.
when
And she seems like the sweetest person.
She is. She
We've
is.
seen her at conventions.
Yeah.
and she's
Absolutely,
cool.
she's as sweet as sugar. At the time, she had a lunatic husband.
Right.
But-
And he's in Star Crash too, right? Isn't he? Or
Judd Hamilton
did he
is
play
in
the
Star-
robot or something? Or I don't know.
Could
maybe.
be, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but she had a husband that was
All right.
Yeah.
kind of a big star rating.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it didn't go that
Yeah.
way.
I'm glad that you
Yeah.
got out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway, so
So he met her on StarCraft.
Yeah. So cut to, we're in New York, we're in production. Daria Nicolodi had dropped out. Supposedly she was doing an Italian TV movie, and so she was not available. And we're broke anyway. We have no money. We're really just running on fumes. So Caroline and Joe met at a Fangoria convention in New York. Just, Joe went there with Tom Savini to say hi and, and socialize with Caroline.
And he had known Tom Savini previous to this?
No, he didn't. We all met Tom for the first time on the movie.
Okay.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. Joe tells, what are you doing? We're making a movie called MANIAC. Our co-star dropped out. Would you like the part?
No.
He offers her the part. And then, of course, then the next thing, her husband is there, and it's like, and we say, well, we don't have any money. We're completely out of money.
Yeah.
And the husband said, I'll get you the money.
Wow.
No.
And he did.
Damn.
He got us. It was, I believe, it was $75,000.
No way.
He got us $75,000, which allowed us to finish shooting the film. And getting it to completion, but
That's
he
awesome.
brought an investor for $75,000,
Wow.
and that was that. He got an investor. We started shooting, and we shot all the scenes with Carolyn.
Yeah.
And finished the movie, and it was a big success.
Well, the thing about this movie too is, unlike, it's interesting you say some of the previous versions of the script where it's like a cop chasing him and all that, because what separates Maniac from all the other slasher movies of the time is like most of the movies take the point of view of like the final girl or the horny teenagers or the
Yeah.
Or the cop,
or
yeah.
Detective Chase. The whole movie is in the world of Frank Zito.
Well,
Yeah.
It'd almost be
The
a
ma-
one-man show.
the Maniac
the,
guy.
The truth is, it was a blessing when
Really?
Jason Miller dropped out. It was a blessing because then we developed, as you say, that the movie is from the point of view of the killer. What
We
I-
never even see any
and-
cops
and
until
I-
the end of the movie.
And I kind of
Yeah.
thought about it as being the point of view of the shark in Jaws. I know you don't see, there's no
Right.
real connection. but
Shark
they-
vision.
Yeah, but the idea was that it would be from the perspective of the killer. For the most part of the movie, it's the perspective of the killer.
Right.
And it was economic, but it was an economic restraint that enhanced the film artistically.
Mhm.
And it was a great
Without a
showcase
doubt.
for Spinell.
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff that he does in his private lair with
Yeah.
all the dolls and everything,
Well, okay.
that is
Yeah.
as fine a piece of acting as I think
And
you're
that's
ever
all
gonna
his
see.
writing.